international psychic medium, Susan Schuler. Welcome to my new show, Midlife Conversations. I decided to start this show because I noticed that there were so many people that I would be reading that were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that were having similar situations and challenges. So I thought that it could be really good for those of us experiencing those challenges to hear other people's stories. So today's guest is Adrienne Mascaro. So hello, Adrienne. How are you, dear?
Hi, how are you, Susan? Thanks for having me here.
Wonderful to be here. I'm so happy that you're joining us. Now, the reason that I asked you on the show is I first met you years ago when I did a reading for you. And I know that you've sat in several of my development circles. So you are psychic, you are a medium, even though reluctantly, sometimes I will say you are both of those things. But you are also an interior designer. So I don't know if she will admit this, but I would refer to her as an intuitive interior designer. So would you tell us a little bit about your gifts and how you got into doing that?
Yes, thanks. I've always been a creative, since I was a kid. I knew in kindergarten, it said, what do you want to be? And I said, I wanted to be an architect. And then I went into the theater, and I really loved, the the characters and their personalities, and I wanted to be an actress in a way. But I remember being at my first play and in college, and the set, I couldn't even think, I wasn't even looking at the actors and what was even going on. I was so intrigued by, oh my God, they designed the set and it's so amazing. So I got really, really into set design. And that was really where I went, the character of the people, the character, all the little details of the set. It was just really magical for me. And then I went into interior design. I got out of theater, went into interior architecture, and then started working in film and TV after I graduated, and is an art department, as a set decorator and art director. And I loved it. And I moved out to Los Angeles. But the thing is that it was still a little dry for me. But I really loved designing for the character. Like that was really that was the grit of it. I loved really getting into their mind and what kind of place that they had. And it wasn't about really making things pretty. It was about really about them.
Adrienne, I had no idea that set designers do that.
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah, because we get their character and we read about them, and we're like, what kind of funky wallpaper would they have up, or what kind of funky blanket would they have on their bed, or this would be so them. And so you really are getting into this fictitious person, and then you're developing them and their character. So it's really, there's so many layers there that are really fun. And so I love that aspect of design. And then but then, that really wasn't where I needed to be. And then I started my own business in 99. I just was like, I'm going to start my own business. I don't know. This producer said to me, how about designing my music studio? And he was a famous music producer, like Elton John was in a studio. Oh, okay, sure, that's my first job, and
no pressure.
No pressure. And I didn't even have a computer. It was 99, and I'm like, I guess I got to get a computer. And what's a fictitious name? I just winged it, And so I did, but he was a great character, and he was also a composer he was a pianist, and so I would he gave me his music to listen to, and I would create through his music. And I created this studio that was so about him. He was all about old English and heavy Baroque kind of fabrics, and and that was just so who he was. And it was really fun. It was really
fun. Did you see this at that time as being intuitive? I mean, when you're feeling into somebody's music,
no, I didn't know that was a segue of getting into their soul, especially someone who created this music. That was his, but it was, but I felt like I was really eavesdropping on him, really peeking into really who he was. And I felt it was a very personal connection, and I'm so glad that he felt that I got him, which is great. So that was kind of, and I had no idea, but I used the tools of, you know, really getting into the character and getting into their essence from my education and then from my experience with theater and with working in film and TV. So
that's crazy to me, because in essence, what you're saying is you were psychically tapping into this person, and
yeah.
you were realizing, without even realizing, that that's how you were going to design something.
Yeah, that was how, yeah, it came to me. Like the colors, the textures, everything came to me. Wasn't about me. Like he didn't come to me, and he even said this. He said, you know, and Elton John said this about him to me. He goes, "Why are you having Adrienne do your place? Like, why don't you use my Monique?" And you know, and because he couldn't understand, like, this girl is just, she doesn't even have a full business. Like, why are you using her?
Right.
And he goes, because Monique is going to do Monique. He goes, Adrienne will do me. She will do what I want. She will feel what I want. And that was my first job. And I'm so glad that, like, screw Elton, you know, I'm so glad that he, like, that he, you know, even said that, because I did give Pat what he wanted. I created what he wanted. And that was, and I didn't realize that that was really my thing.
Wow, that's so intriguing to me, seriously. And it's funny because, and as we were talking about before, my room here that I'm sitting in, for those viewers that are listening right now, this used to be a red room. And Adrienne said to me one time when we were in one of my classes, she's like, you really need to get rid of that red room. Now that you're doing things and you're on camera, you need to get rid of that. And I have to say, I feel like a new woman, and this isn't even the color Adrienne wanted me to do. I tried to do something that would work, and it's like we kind of settled on this one, but it does. It feels so much better. And I think so many times, like what you're saying, people look at more of the, well, like you said, you look at a magazine, I want this. And it doesn't have anything to do with you as the person.
What it has to do with, and I want to, like, really kind of key into that, is what it has to do with is the energy the person wants to feel. So they see that room and they think, God, I really love that. You know, sometimes clients will come to me and they'll bring me these magazine pictures, and there's like this tremendous window and all this flood of light coming in, and their room is like, doesn't even have that kind of window or that light source or anything. And they're saying, this is what I want. It's really hard to create that, of course, but it's really the energy that they want to feel. They want to feel flooded with that feeling. Or they want to feel flooded with coziness. Like maybe it's a ski lodge feeling, and there's a lot of texture and warmth, and they feel security in that. And so, you know, bringing all those things to life. That's why I create mood boards for my clients. A lot of designers create mood boards. I get really in. I mean, I go kind of really deep, and I really like go, let's really talk about some stuff, you know. And I have this teenage client right now who's so lovely. She's got so much edge to her, and she sent me over her playlist. And her playlist was like hoes and pussies, and like, it was just like, I mean, seriously, it was like, oh, okay, like I didn't realize that this was this music that was going to come out of this 15-year-old. But and then she goes, don't play it around your daughter. And I'm like, okay. And it was just funny, and it was so funny to tap into her. Now, you know, I tapped into her. I tapped into really what she wanted. And I created this space that was like, I'm just super excited. It's going to be done soon. And she's like, I love it. I love it. I love it. Like everything she loved about it. And her mom's like, it's such a unique space. And I'm like, no, it's your daughter. It is your daughter. Like, you can't go to my website and say, that's the place I want. Like, you can't look at it on Pinterest. It's so unbelievably different. Right. So I would say what you do with the design and being able to tap into someone is you're tapping into the feeling of them and the feeling that they want to be. So, so the one thing that I don't know if, you know, that magical time of evening, that twilight, where it's the day is done, but the beautiful glow of the sun is still there. And then it goes into the nighttime, that glow, when you see that, that's her wallpaper.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome.
So so it's that magical time of like the day, but going into the evening, and the evening is where she gets her energy from.
Oh, that's lovely.
And her mom was like, no, I'm really afraid that it's going to be like cave. I'm like, no, this is where she's going to shine. because it's that loungy evening feeling where she feels her sense of self. That's what this room is going to create for her.
Oh my God.
And so that's what, so it really is tapping into that. And, but not many people will allow you to go in there.
Right.
You know,
Well, I'm going to correct you on that. I think in the past, there may not have been, I think many more people are open to things like that right now. I mean, as we see, as we're closing out Pisces and bringing in Aquarius, not to sound too woo-woo, it is like people are definitely going to be more open to that. So I love the fact that I'm dubbing you as the intuitive interior designer, because I just think that's your skill set. Now, like I said, I know that you, you know, you've been taking classes in psychic, you've been taking classes in mediumship. And it was funny too, because I remember there were times I'd see the look of surprise on your face, like, how did I just get that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, girl, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So I have to ask you, is this something that you knew you always had, or was it just you sort of labeled it as creativity?
Yeah, I always had it, and I always blocked it because I was so afraid of it. I was so afraid of what others thought, and I didn't want to say something that I was out of line. I was very respectful of boundaries of people. And even though I'm a bold person, I just wasn't bold enough to be able to express that. And so, so what I would do is, for a lot of my life, I would block it, and I would block it with alcohol.
Oh, okay. You know, that's so interesting. And I'm glad you bring this up, because I'm going to say most of, and I'm talking professional psychic mediums I know, either eat too much, drink too much, smoke too many cigarettes. It's like we find some way to kind of soothe ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we are so sensitive to everything around us.
It's true.
Okay. So I have to ask you that, when you stopped drinking, how did you?
Stop drinking, and which I just did cold turkey.
Good for you.
And I just thought, this, you know, just something clicked in my head, like, this just doesn't serve me anymore. And I just stopped, and then I haven't drank since.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, so it's been great, but what happens is, you know, also when I stopped, I was on Zoloft. I'm not embarrassed to admit this. I was postpartum with my child, and they put me on Zoloft with being postpartum, and I went off Zoloft and off alcohol all at the same time.
Wow.
So it was like super intense. And then my meditations became more intense. So then I realized that, like, my meditations, and I can tap in much more without alcohol and without any kind of chemical. But it took a while for my brain chemistry to shift.
And that's interesting that you bring that up, because I know there was in New Orleans a reader who you could smell so much wine on his breath. Mm-hmm. And it was like, he even acknowledged, I can't do this work unless I'm heavily drinking. Yeah. And I don't know about the way I was trained, whereas it's like, if I'm doing mediumship and I'm doing alcohol, how insulting is that to the spirit world? It's like, right. I could just see the spirit world coming down. Great. I got to work with the drunk medium. Really? Right. You know?
Right. You know, and I think I know why that is, because I understand it, like, because I've been there where I'm drinking, and then I could just like think, because I have no inhibitions, and I'm not blocking that inhibition. I'm just allowing it to flow. So when you're drinking, which I was a really happy drunk, actually, you know, and super like outgoing, and then my outgoingness would come out. And then, you know, so when that energy, that feeling of the happiness and the outgoingness, when you allow yourself to let that go, the alcohol would allow that to come more freely. So you don't block it.
Wow. And so if you think about that, okay, as psychic and mediums, for those of you that are watching this who may not understand this, one of the hardest things to do is to blend. You either blend with the spirit world, or you blend with those people that you're reading for. And so if you're allowing yourself to always have the alcohol or the drugs so you can blend, that's detrimental to you if you think about it, because you're blending with everything.
It is.
And you're not. Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And the thing is that what I've noticed about blending more is that I get out of my way. Like when I blend, I don't know if that makes sense, but I get out of my way. and I allow this, it's like a feeling that comes over you that you're just like, you're like riding a wave. You know what I mean? It's like riding a wave of just like, it just feels good. You just know, but I have to get out of my way. Right. And if I'm drinking, I am all in my way.
Absolutely.
Like you're riding a wave, but you're riding a different wave. You're changing your perspective, and you have to get out of the way to blend. Mm-hmm. That's what I notice.
Yeah.
And
because our rational mind, our ego mind is going to get in the way. Absolutely. Hands down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and so when I'm creating with interior design, I get out of my way too. I have to like go, first off, what does the room need? Because your house or your apartment and your space, that is a person. That's like an entity. That's like its own personality. And, not going into like any, buddy that's visiting that house. I'm not going to go in there right now, but like any kind of energies that are there present, but the bones and the structure are actually its own entity. Right. And that would say, this is what I want. So if you move into a place and you have like, you want a certain look or you want a certain feeling, you have to be able to say like, can this space be able to be the canvas that it needs to be able to blend into that. So I think that people who are looking for places when they're shopping for real estate, I think you have to be really careful with really the place that's for you. And especially if you're a couple, like really be on the same page of what you want to create there. So I think that real estate agents would be pretty intuitive as well, right?
I would think they could be, but this brings us right into what you and I were talking about earlier. I had gotten a divorce and we lived in my place. And you share this story with me, because to me that I just find this so intriguing when you were for one night.
So I hope you don't mind me saying, so
share it.
So I knew you were dating. And you were just like, I'm just like, it's like a shoe that just didn't fit. And it was a nice shoe, but you're like, yeah, it just doesn't fit. And this person's nice, but there's just something. And I'm like, it's not the shoe. And I just kept thinking it's not. And then I saw you in your place and I'm like, it's your place. Like honestly, it was your place. And I just kept saying that it's everyday things. Like you are surrounded with everyday items that reminds you of your ex, but you don't even know it's there. So it's a subconscious thing. And you're like, no. And I was afraid to tell you. Like, here's like, you're my mentor. And I'm like,
no. And the funny thing about this is, for the viewers out there, I have done so much clearing of the ex. I wanted him gone. I didn't want him anywhere in the apartment. I mean, there's not a piece of furniture that his butt even sat on here. So it was like, for her to say that, I was like, no, he's all gone. And she's like,
I kept saying, I was like, no, he's not. You don't realize. And I kept saying everyday things. I'm like, there are things that you don't even realize that are there that you're attached to his energy. And I'm telling you, it's still got to go. And you're like, no. And you're telling me no. And I'm like, I'm going to tell her no. Like, I know this. And so when you said like, there was the silverware that, and it was like, it's everyday items. It's things that you use every single day. Like, or the wreath or the object that was on your front door, or those guys. And the color in your room was like, it was the wrong color for you. So there were things that are in the subconscious that you don't know. And if I could be a tool to say to someone, look, you are looking at this like piece of art or this piece of furniture that was given to you. And every time you walk into the room and it's in your subconscious, you don't realize how it resonates. Like, I don't like it. Oh, it'll go away. But you're constantly in that energy. So you have to really look at like, no, I need it to go away. I need something to fill the space that every time I see it, it brings me joy, it brings me happiness. These are just simple little things, but I think that I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to say to you, like, you will find someone when you get rid of these things. Like you're still holding on to it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, for the viewers, it was a deal changer. And it was so funny too, because she was overeating at my house and the silverware fell twice. And finally we're like, oh, it's the silverware. He gave me the silverware. I've always hated it, you know?
I know it's like these everyday little they go into your subconscious.
Right.
And so if you're open enough to say, what is it that I really desire? What is it that I really want to change? What is it that, am I open enough to say, like, is there something here that maybe I can resonate with? Like, can I ask you about things like this piece of furniture? Like, what does this mean to you? I really want to know, like, what this means to you. And you might be like, I don't really know what it means. And it means, well, let's talk about it and let's either get rid of it or redo it or something. But all of those things are in your environment, create your essence.
And I mean, think about that. And that's why I love the fact that you do this, because I mean, I'm a Taurus, so home is important to me. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's very important. And I work from home and I'm a real homebody. So for me to know that my living space feels a certain way, it makes you a different person. Like, I am fastidiously neat because as an empath, I can't have the clutter.
Yeah.
So even just like knowing that about somebody, sure, that would make a huge difference.
The one thing I would say to you, and knowing you, and I still want to say this, and I say this every time I come over, is, can I take my shoes off? And you're like, no. I really think you should start having people take their shoes off.
You know, I do now since
okay,
COVID.
Good. Yeah. Good. Because I just really think you're bringing in that other energy. And I think you need, because you're such an open person, I think you still need some boundaries there. And you're really good with boundaries. Like, you're down with the boundaries. But I think that, like, there's like those tweaks of like the shoes.
Right.
I worry about that. And not just with COVID, even before COVID, I was like, really? She wants me to bring okay. So what I wanted to do is, I was like, I keep thinking about this. I'm like, you got to change your rugs. That's the next thing.
You know, it's so funny. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, is navy, I've got to talk to her what color I'm supposed to go with, because I'm ready to get rid of these. Absolutely. Yeah. I was just saying that the other day.
Yeah. So we'll find you some really low cost, good, colorful rugs for you. But that's the other energy. Like, and I think like your place is great. And I'm super excited about you wanting to go purple.
Yes.
So, and that's what I see you in. And I think that, like, you're going to be at this place for a while, but I do definitely see you in a different space with a lot more natural light.
Right.
And I just see you surrounded by these, like, I want to do a palette reading for you and do like the colors that I feel that should be around you.
Okay. So stop a second. Now just think about this, a palette reading. That's another thing that I mean, because I know you're like I am, you work with color, but I mean, you've got the background. To me, it's only coming to me psychically. But I mean, to me, and the thing that I love about this, and this is what I really want to bring across to our viewers, is the fact that you're taking your skill set and you're marrying it with your intuitive gifts. And I really feel like there's going to be more and more people that are doing that. Because, and that's why when people will take classes with me, they'll be like, you know, well, I don't want to be a psychic medium. I'm like, good, you don't need to be a psychic medium, but you do need to use your intuitive skills.
Right.
Because I mean, everything that you're saying, I mean, my God, that's making you so much better at what you do.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's just like, it's understanding how the colors work together, which is, like, you know, an artist is, you know, the rules and you know the rules well enough that you could break the rules. Right. So I think that with knowing the colors that come to me for the person, it's your energy, but also like colors are like, so if you picture this, okay, so I played this little game with my daughter. I said, if you walked into a space, just 4 walls, and you walked into the room and it was just white, how would you feel in there? Like, really, and this isn't about how I would feel in there or about how anyone else would feel in there, but how do you feel? Like, how do you describe it? And then if there was a room that you walked into that was bright yellow and you sat in there for a while, how would you feel in there? The color is energy.
Absolutely.
So it's tapping into, like, is this the right color for me? Is this the right energy for me? Is it too intense for me? What does it do for me? So, and then the layers are furniture and texture and all that, but you start with really the color, or like a piece of art that really resonates with you. Why do you do this? Why do you choose this piece of art or this piece of fabric? Some people might say, it just makes me happy. And it's like, great. Well, let's pull out all that happiness and surround yourself with happiness.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So really think about that and your vibration of that. And I think that with COVID, we've all experienced, like, we're in our home and I have been looking at this stupid wall forever. And it's like the wrong color for me, or the wrong, like, it doesn't, like, people are going, I need to create my space. This is the time,
Right.
which is really beautiful. This is the time to really do self-care, really get into what really resonates with us.
Absolutely.
How do we like take this energy of being at home and rejuvenate, and then we can go out to the world again.
Right. Oh, that's such a good way of putting it. Okay, so then the last thing, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. I love it. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, now I know that you have an 11-year-old daughter, and I do know she is what we would refer to as one of our psychic kids, which is surprising because so many times things like that do go from one generation to the next.
Yep.
So, because I know there are other people who have psychic kids who will be watching this. So could you just give us a little bit of, like, when did you first start seeing things that were like, okay, wait a second, something's up? How does it play out? Maybe if there's difficulties or good things?
Yeah.
You know, tell us a little bit about her.
Absolutely. So yeah, Emma is very in tune. She, I first noticed this at an apartment that we lived in Venice. And she must have been about 2 or 3, like about 2 or 3. And she still sleeps in my bed, but she was sleeping in my bed. And I woke up that night. A lot of weird energies were going on in that room for a while. Strange stuff. And one night I felt it was super heaviness, and I was scared, and I woke up with a lot of fear, and I was just really still. And then my daughter, Emma, was up, and so we're both laying in the bed, and she's like, she kept doing this to the air, like poking. And I go, what are you doing? She goes, I'm poking the bubbles. And I was like, I go, they're bubbles? And she's like, yeah, they're bubbles. And I'm poking them. And they were not feeling good.
Was she seeing orbs?
She was seeing orbs.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I was intrigued. I was like, well, how, because I was scared. These were not feeling good bubbles. They just weren't. And I said, well, are they nice? And she goes, no. But she kept poking them. And then I said, well, what do they look like? And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. I mean, literally, like, I don't want, like, dismissive, like, I don't want to talk about it, and turns over. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, she's seeing those orbs. Like, I didn't see any orbs. I've seen them before in that room, but I didn't at that time. I just was feeling something. So, and she doesn't ever want to talk about that. And she's very dismissive about things. Like, I even, like, we play little games together, but she's very, like, she's just, you know.
But you're always accepting of it.
I'm always accepting of it, because I want her to be this is the main reason. This is the main reason, is I want her to use her own judgments. I always say that when you're out with friends or you're out doing anything, it's not that you're going to be listening to me. You have to listen to your heart. Like, what does your heart say? What does in here say? If you can develop that, you'll know which path to go. Like, and so, but she has a lot of resistance with me, like, because it's the mom-daughter battling. And so if I bring this to her, she'll be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do it. She said that she'll experience this when she wants to. So she's still in, like, she's a preteen, and she's, you know, not really wanting to go there.
And you know what I'm feeling as you're telling me this? I actually feel like there's past lives where she may have had issues with being this way.
Yeah. She's, she just doesn't, she's more of like, her dad is a scientist, so he dismisses everything. And so I said, well, you know, if your dad's a scientist, he can explain to you about quantum physics. Exactly. And you can go there. It's probably taps into the same thing. So I said, maybe he just doesn't understand quantum physics very much. So so she'll develop at her own pace, and when she wants to, she's not someone that I could say, hey, do you want to do this? She'd be like, no. She would say no just because I presented it to her. So in that regard, she's not ready yet.
Right.
I think the kid has to be really ready.
Absolutely. And I also notice it's like, and I think this is why it's so funny. When I first got into development circles myself, everybody was middle-aged. And it was just like, you've had your kids, you've done your thing. And now it's like, okay, oh, now I've got these things that keep coming at me and I can't run away from them anymore. It's sort of like you can back away from them for so long. And then it's like, if you're meant to be intuitive, as psychic, a medium, it's like, you're going to be it.
I didn't share this with you. So, you know how you were saying that it goes like lineage, it could go through. So, I don't know if I shared this with you, but my aunt that I just, one of my mom's sisters that I just learned about and developed a relationship because my mom was adopted. So I have one aunt that is, she and I have shared this. And I said to her, she's really intuitive. And I said to her, I go, do you see colors? And she goes, did I tell you this already? And I said, no, do you? And I said, she goes, well, I do. And so this is one of the reasons why I asked you, because I thought there was something wrong with me, but because I didn't know why this was happening, but I do see colors on people's hands. So that was something that I've always been like, what is that? Like, I don't get it. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. And now I'm starting to kind of go in like, hey, it's okay. Like, it's okay that I see colors, and it doesn't always happen. It's not like something I can just turn on, which is kind of frustrating because I kind of wish I could. But so my aunt says that she sees the same thing. It doesn't actually go on their hand. It's just around their hand. Mm-hmm. So, and she sees it the same way I do. Like, it's in your peripheral vision. And then then she can see it from over here developing. And I said, well, mine develops where I'm actually like the person like dipped their hand in like a bucket of paint, like it's that thick of a color. And she goes, oh no, I don't see it like that. But for us to both have that same thing is like, maybe it's genetic, it really
could very well be genetic. And that's your mom's side of the family. Mine kind of goes on my mom's side of the family, but it came through as like really organized, strict religion. It was like, that was how they felt more comfortable. But I think it's interesting that it was the hands.
Yeah.
It's like, because I've heard, like, I've got one friend, and this is the interesting part. Most people, when they see auras, they see it in their mind's eye or clairvoyantly. They don't actually see it around the person.
Yeah.
So the fact that you see it on their hands, that's kind of cool.
Like, it's like on them, like paint.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. I just have, but with you, with learning with you is I'm learning like what it really means. And I think the only way to really tap into that is kind of learning more about that person too, is kind of like what they're going through or what they're, so it's been interesting. I've seen pretty much every color, even like dark blackish gray.
Right.
And even like a light, milky, like I've seen every kind of color.
Right. And it's interesting. It's like, now, because you worked with me, it's like Paul Jacobs is was one of my teachers, and like he was of the mind, and I think he might have gotten his color information from Gordon Higginson. But it's like, just to give you an example, it's like red. Whenever I see red in a woman, I remember him teaching how that usually means there's like unresolved issues with like a father or a man in her life. Mm-hmm. So colors definitely mean very specific things,
They do.
Yeah.
And I think it's I'd love to learn more about that, because that's the definition. It's like they come and you're like, I don't know. At first I was like, I was like, am I seeing something wrong? Like, what's going on with my eyes? And I'm really good with color. So I'm like, no. And it wasn't for, and this has been happening, I'd say about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So it's not a new development. It's something that's happened. It happened like about 30 years ago.
Wow, that's so intriguing. Okay, so could you do me a favor right now? Could you just tell the audience what your website is?
Oh, sure. So it's Studio Blue. It's BLU, no EM blue.com. So studioblue.com, or no, sorry, studioblueinc.com, because I became incorporated. Oops.
Oh, good girl. Good girl.
So yeah, so it's studioblueinc.com. And yeah, you'll see that, like, that's the thing. My website is not, it's not a brand. It's not a, it's, I mean, my brand is my person,
right.
And you'll see like how different these jobs really are. They're so all over the spectrum of personality. And And that is, I guess that's just the way I want it, you know? I mean,
well, it's so funny. Well, I keep trying to get Adrienne to like push herself more as being the intuitive interior designer. We were just talking before we got on today about how she's very hesitant to do that. But I do think that that's what you're supposed to do.
No, I really, and I really, you know what, I think it's really about an acknowledgement of welcoming those people to come to me, of saying like, I just have to really do a meditation on that, is saying like the people that are coming to me, it's because they really want to be heard. They really want me to pull that out in them more, and, you know, and they have to trust. They have to be they have to let go of the control of the, you know, that's the big thing, is that they have to be really specific with what their needs are, but then let go of the control and just allow this to transpire.
Right.
You know, and so that takes also a brave client, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody at least who's a little aware about the importance of being intuitive.
Yeah.
Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, this is International Psychic Medium Susan Schuler. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our show of Midlife Conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.